Will we see any familiar faces in House of the Dragon? Which great war will form the basis of the story? More importantly, what's the deal with the dragons? House of the Dragon ain't out to rehash the past. The series will obviously pay homage to its predecessor, but viewers can also expect a fantasy epic that brings something new to the table. At least that's what co-showrunner Miguel Sapochnik has been saying during his recent press rounds. Game of Thrones wasn't broken, so we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, he told Digital Spy. House of the Dragon has its own tone that will evolve and emerge over the course of the show.
What is dead may never die!
Miguel also said that Game of Thrones is going to be a tough act to follow, and he isn't expecting House of the Dragon to be better. But if the show comes anywhere close to capturing the magic of the original, he'll be happy. And so will we. However, House of the Dragon already differs from Game of Thrones in one key area. It actually has an ending going in. When Game of Thrones originally aired, George R.R. Martin was still writing the novels it's based on, which wasn't ideal. The history detailed in House of the Dragon has already been documented in some of the books, so the creators will hopefully manage to avoid a polarizing final season down the line.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
That being said, what can fans expect from the story? The showrunners have shared some enticing information on that too. Those who watched the trailer will have spotted some juicy details and Easter eggs. For a start, it's set 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones, and will revolve around the Targaryen dynasty as they duke it out for the Iron Throne. But before that happens, King Viserys needs to get out of the picture first, and the trailer makes it clear that he's a powerful fella. Did you catch that short of the sword in the trailer? That's surely Blackfire. That's been wielded by all the badass kings in Targaryen history. Speaking of sharp weapons, did you see the dagger Olivia Cook was holding in the trailer? That kind of looks like the same weapon Arya Stark used to kill the Night King. Maybe this is what Miguel was talking about when he said House of the Dragon would pay homage to Game of Thrones. The trailer also shows us a glimpse of a jousting competition. Jousting will give knights like Sir Criston Cole a chance to show off their combat skills in the series. However, it's also worth noting that one of the books this show is based on features a jousting competition that sets all of the drama in motion. Could this be that tournament? Probably so. Now, every show that centers around the Targaryen needs dragons. The trailer doesn't show any of the creatures in all of their fire-breathing glory, but it does give us a quick peek at a dragon skull, which appears to belong to Balerion the Black Dread. Surely that's more confirmation that dragons are surely coming. All of the bloodshed and political upheaval that we've come to associate with the world of Westeros will be present and accounted for in House of the Dragon. Now, if you're like us and just can't wait for this series to hit screens, fear not. George R.R. Martin has recommended some reading materials to whet your starving appetites in the meantime. So, where should you start? George's first recommendation is Dangerous Women. This bloody story chronicles the Dance of the Dragon's civil war that rocked Westeros a couple of centuries before the events of Game of Thrones. This war will also be at the heart of the prequel series on HBO, which is exciting news for those of us who can't wait to see more epic battles. In Game of Thrones lore, the Dance of the Dragons was one of the most unique wars in Westeros history. While armies did march and slaughter each other the old-fashioned way, most of the battles during the Dance of the Dragons were fought at sea and in the air. That's right, in the air. So you bet your bottom dollar that there's gonna be dragons, and lots of them. During this time period, the beasts were still out in full force and at the heart of all the chaos. George has also encouraged fans to get acquainted with rogues, which revolves around a fella called Prince Daemon Targaryen. He's set to be played by Matt Smith in the prequel series, and he's probably going to be a standout player due to the character's hot-headedness and family history. Finally, Fire and Blood has also been recommended as essential reading. This book digs into the history of the Targaryen clan in Westeros, so why don't you get acquainted with their antics right away? House of the Dragon is all about the Targaryens' political turmoil, but Game of Thrones enthusiasts can also look forward to seeing some fan-favorite characters enter the fray. The Starks and Lannisters also played a key role in the Civil War, and you better believe they caused some headaches. The betrayals and backstabbings that made Game of Thrones unpredictable appointment viewing will continue in House of the Dragon. Don't trust anyone.
The things I do for love.
Of course, Game of Thrones took some creative liberties with the source material, and House of the Dragon will probably do the same. Still, those books should provide some valuable insights all the same. The House of the Dragon trailer might also have given us a major clue about the future direction of the Game of Thrones franchise. The famous sailor Corlys Velaryon makes an appearance, and he's set to play a major role in the prequel saga. But before we get to that, here's some background on the guy. Corlys is basically the greatest adventurer in the history of the world. In fact, tales of his seafaring exploits are so legendary that they were told for centuries afterward. In the lore, he led the Velaryons' house to Westeros from lands afar. He ends up marrying into the Targaryen family too, and develops a close working relationship with Daemon. But how does the inclusion of this character potentially change the future of the Game of Thrones franchise, you ask? Well, HBO is said to be developing another spin-off series based on his adventures, called The Great Voyages of Sea Snake. So it's possible that HBO is also using House of the Dragon to test the waters for a Corlys solo saga down the line. Then again, take all of the news you hear about Game of Thrones spin-offs with a pinch of salt. We all know that HBO has a habit of announcing new shows, then pulling the plug on them.
I did warn you not to trust me.
Anyway, that's all just speculation for now. What we do know for sure is that we'll be spending time with some awesome characters in House of the Dragon. Let's meet them. Emma Darcy will portray Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, a badass who has dreams of taking the throne, but must deal with the patriarchy in Westeros before that can happen. Olivia Cooke, meanwhile, will play the princess's stepmother, Queen Alicent Hightower. Alicent doesn't support Rhaenyra in her quest to rule because would rather have one of her sons in charge instead. Plus, she doesn't love the fact that her husband had a child with another woman before they tied the knot. And while we're on the subject of Alicent's hubby, he'll be played by Paddy Considine.
Kings.
King Viserys is an important character in House of the Dragon, as his death sets in motion all of the events that led to the infighting. And showrunner Ryan Condal is thrilled with the man they hired for the challenge.
He can do anything. You look at his body of work, and he's done from comedy to dark drama. He's just a incredibly gifted actor, and we know that he can pull off whatever we give him to do.
House of the Dragon has some top-notch talent behind the camera too. We've already mentioned Miguel and Ryan, but let's talk about their credentials. Miguel directed some of Game of Thrones' most acclaimed episodes, including Battle of the Bastards, The Winds of Winter, and Hardhome. So y'all will be pleased to know that he'll be helming some episodes in House of the Dragon as well. Ryan, on the other hand, was handpicked by George R.R. Martin to oversee House of the Dragon. Martin was so impressed by his knowledge of the books and ideas for a prequel series that he vouched for him. But Ryan thinks he got the job because he's such a fanboy of the author.
He brought up my name a few times very kindly with HBO because he liked me, and they spoke to me very early when they were starting this spin-off process.
Now, the big question is, when can we actually watch this show? While no release date has been confirmed yet, George R.R. Martin revealed that we'll probably see it sometime in the spring of 2022. Until then, we'll just have to make do with the books. If you like this video, be sure to check out our video on the funniest bloopers and behind-the-scenes stories from Game of Thrones. Thanks for watching.